everyone, my name is Mr. Otherwise I'm Chris, and welcome to Dogfights, a series in which I put two aircraft from War Thunder up against each other to see which one is the best. Now today we got two absolute brutes, both attackers, one from the Russian Air Force and one from the American Air Force. So here we go, we got the IL-2 Sturmovik, and then coming all the way from the American Air Force, the big, the brute, the A-20G Havoc. Alright, so let's compare these two aircraft. Now I compare aircraft differently depending on their classification. Now obviously today we're dealing with attackers, but if we were dealing with a different type of aircraft, then I would compare them on different criteria. Now with attackers I compare them on 6 different criteria. That's their bomb load, their turret defenses, their top speed, their rate of climb, their 1 second burst mass, and their weapons. So let's do this. So in terms of bomb load, the IL-2 has got 8 RS-132 rockets along with 4 100kg bombs, whereas the A-20G has got 4 500-pound bombs, which equates to 226.8 kilograms. Now in terms of turret defenses, the IL-2 has got no turret defenses whatsoever, whereas on the A-20G it's got 3 12.7mm Browning machine guns with 1200 rounds of ammunition. Now in terms of top speed, the IL-2 can reach a top speed of 416 kilometers an hour, whereas the A-20G can reach a top speed of 546 kilometers an hour. Now the IL-2 has got a rate of climb of 8 meters per second, whereas the A-20G has got a rate of climb of 10 meters per second. Now if in terms of 1 second burst mass, if you don't know what that is, that's if you was to aim at an aircraft with 100% accuracy and pull the trigger for 1 second, that's the extra weight added onto the enemy aircraft. So essentially it reads the force added onto the enemy aircraft. Now in terms of the IL-2, it's got a 1 second burst mass of 4.54 kilograms per second, whereas the A-20G's got a 1 second burst mass of 3.23 kilograms per second. Now in terms of weapons, the IL-2's got 2 7.60mm SH-KAS machine guns with 1500 rounds of ammunition, and it also has a 23mm VY-A23 cannon with 300 rounds of ammunition, whereas on the A-20G it's got 6 12.7mm Browning machine guns with 2100 rounds of ammunition. Alright, so let's summarise all that and see which aircraft is better at its role. Now obviously we're dealing with attackers. If you don't know what an attacker is, it's similar to a bomber in the way that it's got to take out ground targets. That's its main focus. However, it's supposed to take them out with more precision than a high altitude bomber would. It's supposed to get in the fight at low altitude and, you know, take out the ground targets that way. It's not built for taking out the big, you know, like the pillboxes and the destroyers and the battleships. That's for the bigger bombers to do. No, the attackers are essentially for taking out the other targets like the tanks and the armoured cars and stuff like that. That's what the attackers do. Now in terms of bomb load, like I said earlier, the IL-2's got 8 rockets and 400kg bombs and blah blah blah. You can see that on screen. Now the IL-2 I feel wins in this situation because although the A-20G has bigger bombs overall, the IL-2 has the same amount of bombs and it has those rockets. Now it's got 8 rockets. Now each of those rockets can easily take out a tank or an armoured car or anything along those lines. So I feel that the fact that it can take out 8 of those, and then plus with its 100kg bombs it can take out like another few more tanks as well. That's 12 ground targets minimum, depending on, you know, if you get more of a spread with the bomb and take out several targets, you can take out even more than that. Whereas the A-20G, although it's got bigger bombs which can take out destroyers and pillboxes, that's not really, that's something that the bigger bombers do, and it can only take out say 4 pillboxes or 2 destroyers or something like that. It's not, the bombs that it has aren't very good at causing a lot of spread, so it won't be able to take out say 2 tanks or whatever, maybe even 3. It won't be able to do that. So I feel that IL-2 is definitely better in taking out more ground targets, whereas the A-20G can have the ability, well, it does have the ability to take out more of the larger ground targets. Now in terms of turret defenses, that's no brainer. The A-20G wins because it actually has turret defenses. The IL-2 does not have turret defenses. Now in terms of top speed, the A-20G wins again because it's got 130 kilometers an hour advantage over the IL-2. That's the same for rate of climb as well. It's got a 2 meter per second rate of climb advantage over the IL-2, so the A-20G wins again. Now in terms of 1 second burst mass, the IL-2 wins with over 1 kilogram per second advantage over the A-20G. Now in terms of weapons, it's a bit of a weird one because the the weapons on an attacker are essentially there to just take out a target quickly, because you don't want aircraft interfering when you're trying to take out ground targets. That's pretty much what the weapons are for. Now on the IL-2, it's got a 23mm cannon and those two 7.62mm, whereas like I said earlier, the A-20G's got six 12.7mm. Now the fact that the A-20G has more machine guns doesn't necessarily make that a better aircraft, because that 23mm cannon is very effective at taking out aircraft, especially fighters, which are going to focus on taking out attackers if they're doing their job. So in my experience, the IL-2 has had a much quicker to kill time than the A-20G has. Now the A-20G can take out a lot of aircraft without having to reload, which is its biggest advantage, but in terms of its weapons. But the IL-2 has a much quicker kill time, so it can probably take out like 3 or 4 aircraft before it has to reload, and it can probably do that in, say, a minute, depending on what aircraft they are, whereas the A-20G will take a little bit longer. So the IL-2 definitely wins on weapons. Now that's a draw, as you can see, so I'm just going to go over some advantages and disadvantages of each of the aircraft so that you get a better idea of how to use them or things to avoid when you're in battle, because obviously if it's a draw you don't necessarily say, alright, I want to use that one then. It's a bit awkward, so I'm just going to go over that now. Alright, so here's a few tips for the IL-2. In arcade, make sure you use bombs and the rockets. They really don't change your performance in arcade that much. In historical battles, completely different story. Try not to climb too much either, because it is really slow. You'll lose a lot of speed, and if anyone's on your tail, you will get killed. Most likely, it depends, because the IL-2 is made out of UFO kind of armor, as people always joke, because it can take quite a lot of damage before going down. Not quite as much as the A-20G, but quite a bit, considering it's quite a small plane. Like I said, in historical battles, do not use rockets or bombs or both at the same time. I was using it in historical battles earlier, and it wouldn't move. I was traveling at about 250 kilometers an hour, and when you're trying to climb, it goes even lower than that. I was hitting critical speed a lot of the time, and I died very easily because of that. So do not use any of the bomb loads or the rocket loads during historical battles. And also, if you're going to take out a target, make sure you go after ones in which you can chase, because the IL-2 is not exactly the fastest plane in the world. So just make sure you're going after things like bombers and other attackers. When it comes to fighters, try not to chase them too much, because if they're trying to get away from you, they probably will escape. Unless you're quick, of course, because you do have 23mm cannons. But that's pretty much it for the IL-2. I haven't used it a huge ton, but what I've experienced of it is very fun. Now, if you don't want to do any of the attacking role that I was talking about earlier, you can use it pretty much as a fighter. It doesn't turn all that great, but as long as you use it as like a boom and zoom, just without the zoom part, because you're not that quick. So just a boom doesn't really sound that great, does it? Just do that; it will work quite well, because with those 23mm cannon, with that 23mm cannon, sorry, you'll be able to take out enemy aircraft very easily. Now with the A-20G, you want to stay high at about 8,000 feet, not 80, just in case you just misheard me, 8,000 feet. And the reason I say stay there is because you don't really want to be getting in the fight. This thing's not built for turning. It's not going to turn that quickly. It turns quite quickly for a an attacker slash bomber, because it looks kind of like a bomber. If you didn't know it was an attacker, you'd probably think it was a bomber. But yeah, the thing doesn't turn all that great. So don't turn with this. It won't work out for you very well. But yeah, just stay up quite high, or at least not too high with the other bombers, but high enough, and bomb targets from there. Now, when you've done some bombing, if you want to help out your team, you've got some machine guns on your aircraft. Just go after one of the enemy bombers at that similar altitude. That can help out your team quite a lot. Now for destroyers, I recommend you lower your altitude to about 2,000 feet and then fly in from, say, behind or in front of the destroyer. Do not do it from the side. It won't work out too well. Now for destroyers, it's going to take 2 of your bombs that hit accurately. For battleships, you're not going to be able to destroy them in one hit. You're probably going to have to go circle and go again. And when it comes to stuff like cargo ships and landing craft, that's just one bomb. That'll do the trick. Or you can use your machine guns. I think that works for landing craft as well. Also, make sure you don't. If you're going to go in for if you're going to go in for a bomb run, make sure you line up your bombing run before you go into bomber view. If you don't know how to use bomber view, you press F7 and it will go into like this. Well, it's like a sniper scope, but it's aiming at the ground, and that's where your bombs will hit. Now, in that mode, you can still control the aircraft, but with the A-20G, because it's got a very bad rudder, you don't want to be doing that. And also, while you're at your aircraft, can take a lot of damage. I mean, a lot of damage. I've survived so much in this aircraft, it's ridiculous. So if someone's shooting at you, don't worry too much. Just make sure that you've leveled up your gunners. Every time you finish a match, if you want to level something up that's useful, make sure it's your gunners, because then when people are shooting at you, although you can take a lot of damage, you will go down eventually, but if you've got your gunners leveled up, obviously they can help to take out the enemy for you. So that's pretty much all my tips for both of those aircraft. Personally, I prefer the A-20G. I've had a lot more fun in it than I have the IL-2. However, I do see how you can have a lot of fun in the IL-2. It's good at taking out fighters, but I prefer the A-20G because I wanted an attacker, and the A-20G fit the role perfectly. So the A-20G is my winner out of these two, however they have drawn statistically. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That was Dogfights. So, I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I've been Mustafa. Over and out.